I'm Nick Whalen from RotoWire. In this video, I'm going to tell you about 4 of the most overrated running backs in fantasy football this season. Let's jump right into it. Aaron Jones of the Minnesota Vikings. Look, I love Aaron Jones. I'm sitting here in Wisconsin filming this video. I can confirm that not a single person in the state was happy to see Aaron Jones go, especially to the Minnesota Vikings. But there's considerable downside here for a running back. You still have to take in the 5th round in a lot of drafts. Jones will turn 30 in December. He's going from what should be one of the best offenses in the NFL in Green Bay to what I view as a significant downgrade in Minnesota, a team now quarterbacked for the foreseeable future by Sam Darnold. This likely will not be a high-scoring offense. We may not see a ton of positive game scripts for Minnesota. Vikings also have sneakily one of the most difficult schedules in the NFL this season. They're currently slight favorites over the Giants in week 1. After that, though, they're underdogs in 7 of their next 8 games. Could be a long year for Minnesota. By far, though, the biggest red flag when it comes to Aaron Jones is the injury history. Lower body injuries, soft tissue injuries, those don't tend to magically reverse when a running back changes teams and turns 30 years old. Even on a per game basis last season, Jones finished as the RB26. A huge chunk of his value came late in the year, a couple big playoff games against San Francisco and Dallas, which of course don't count for fantasy. That's at a time when Green Bay's passing game was really clicking. Things were opening up for Aaron Jones. I'm not saying he doesn't have any left in the tank. I think he still has another good year or 2 in him, but I'm just not optimistic about this situation in Minnesota. Yes, he'll be the clear starter, but Ty Chandler, still a factor there. Bottom line is, if you're buying in on Aaron Jones, it really requires some optimism on the injury front, and that's just not something I'm willing to do at this stage of his career. In Minnesota, the upside calculation just isn't there for me. If I'm taking a running back in that range, I'm leaning more towards safety, looking at somebody like David Montgomery in Detroit. If you're enjoying this video, and honestly, even if you're not, please hit that like button. Please subscribe to the RotoWire YouTube channel. I know we always say it, but it really does help us out a ton. Next running back on our list, Austin Ekeler. Put it this way, I've done a ton of best ball drafts. I've done a bunch of redrafts. I do not have a single share of Austin Ekeler this season, and ultimately I'm okay with that. You're not paying nearly the same price as you were for Ekeler in years past, of course, but that's for good reason. His overall numbers took a massive dip last season. His efficiency, yards after contact, missed tackle rate, all those have been on the decline now for a couple of years, and perhaps most damningly, Austin Ekeler did not pass the eye test last season. If you watched any Chargers football, Ekeler did not look like the same guy. I don't know how that, magically changes course year over year as he gets a year older. Landing in Washington, it does present Ekeler with some opportunity. It's not the worst landing spot, but he's now in a defined timeshare with Brian Robinson, and one that he could end up on the short end of as the season goes along. Robinson is not exactly Christian McCaffrey. I'm not saying that, but he shouldn't be going behind Austin Ekeler, which is still the case in a bunch of drafts. Now, much like Antonio Gibson last season, Ekeler will have his moments, no question. There will be some weeks where he puts up numbers in PPR leagues, 4 or 5 catches, maybe a touchdown, but his best days to me are firmly in the rear view. And this is a Washington offense that is still somewhat of a mystery. We got a new head coach, we got a rookie quarterback, a new coordinator. We're not quite sure what this is going to look like, what the breakdown is going to be between Ekeler and Brian Robinson. I will say the acquisition cost is now low enough for Ekeler that taking a flyer on him, it's probably not going to kill you, but I'd rather get my hands on a firm starter, like somebody like Devin Singletary at that point in the draft, or perhaps chase some more upside with a younger back like Chase Brown or Tajay Spears. I just don't really get the appeal with Austin Ekeler. Best case scenario is maybe you get a return on your investment, but it's hard for me to see him dramatically exceeding his ADP. Next on the list, Tony Pollard of the Tennessee Titans. This time last year, could not have been more fired up about Tony Pollard. Everything was falling into place. He's finally the lead back in Dallas. Did not go like we expected. Pollard regressed in just about every key metric last season, and that was for the #1 scoring offense in the NFL. Dallas led the league in red zone possessions last season with 71. Pollard had the 6th most carries inside the 10-yard line last season, converted only 5 of those into touchdowns, finished the year with 6 total touchdowns overall. While Dallas does have its own question marks, it's hard to argue that Pollard is not in a significantly worse situation now with the Tennessee Titans. New coaching staff, new full-time starter at quarterback, and Will Levis, who brings a ton of variance to this offense. Titans, by the way, failed to reach 300 yards of total offense in half Levis' starts last season. This was one of the worst offensive lines in football in 2023, and yeah, they've taken some steps to address that, but I remain skeptical. I mean, what's the best case here is that this is maybe the 22nd, 23rd best offensive line in the NFL. Worst of all, though, Tony Pollard is now back in a timeshare with a similar but younger player in Tajay Spears. Tennessee, for their part, they're insisting that, both of these guys will be big factors. They're going to ride the hot hand week to week. I mean, that's all well and good if the hot hand is Tony Pollard, but what if Tajay Spears comes out of the gates looking like the better back? I mean, even as the backup to Derrick Henry last season, Spears threw more targets than Tony Pollard. He's certainly the more explosive of the two at this point, and he's going 2+ rounds later than Tony Pollard in CBS leagues right now. Perhaps the change of scenery and the return to a timeshare, maybe that rejuvenates Tony Pollard. I'm open to that, but there are just too many risk factors at play here. At a very basic level, it feels like a 50-50 proposition between Spears and Pollard, and of course, there's the chance that it is just a true timeshare. If I'm chancing it on one of the Tennessee backs, I'd rather limit my investment, take Spears after pick 100, and hope that he ends up being the guy. Fourth and final running back on our list, De'Von Achane of the Miami Dolphins. It would not be an overvalued running back list without mentioning Achane, and this one hurts because Achane is one of the most electrifying players in the NFL, probably the most electrifying running back in the league. And as fun as he may be, though, is he really worth drafting as your RB1 at the end of round 2, maybe even higher? Maybe in a best case scenario, Achane is a top 5 fantasy running back behind some monster weeks. He gave us a preview of that upside last season, no question about it. But this is a Dolphins offense that has plenty of options. They don't need to lean on De'Von Achane. You got 2 elite wide receivers and Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. You have 2 other capable running backs and Raheem Mostert. Bring in a rookie and Jalen Wright in the 4th round. He should see plenty of work. Achane is the home run hitter. He's the upside play, but we're still not exactly sure what that workload is going to look like week to week. I mean, Raheem Mostert ran for 18 touchdowns last season. Now, I would bet my mortgage that he's not going to do that again, but as long as he's healthy, he's going to be a significant factor in this offense. Jalen Wright, for his part, he's looked great in the preseason. He's still the clear number 3 to me, but the Dolphins are going to get him looks, much like they did De'Von Achane last season. And then you have the durability component when it comes to Achane. He's a smaller back. He's missed essentially 6 games last season. With his frame, health is always going to be a concern, and I expect the Dolphins to be on the forefront here. They're going to keep a close eye on his workload. They're going to make sure he's not overextended as much as possible, which is great for Achane long term. It's great in real life. Might not be ideal for fantasy in terms of what that workload looks like week to week. Mostert, right, they'll both be in the mix. I don't think we're going to see a ton of games where Achane is a true workhorse back, seeing 20+ touches. Now, the argument against all that is, hey, maybe he doesn't need 20 touches a game to be effective. And look, some weeks that is absolutely true. Achane is the biggest game breaker at the position. If he rips off a 72-yard touchdown and ends up carrying the ball 9 times total, you're okay with that. You got your value off that one big play, but let's be real here. He's not going to average 7.8 yards per attempt. Again, there's virtually no historical precedent for that, especially doing that 2 years in a row. Teams are going to be better prepared to slow him down, as we began to see toward the end of last season when Achane averaged under 4 yards per attempt in 3 of his final 5 games. Bottom line, when it comes to Achane, I love the player. I don't think he'll be a true bust, injuries aside, but to me, he just doesn't profile as the type of back I want to lock down in round 2. Too much injury risk, too much volatility week to week, just enough competition in that backfield to scare me away at cost. All right, those are our 4 overvalued running backs for 2024. Again, please like, subscribe to the RotoWire YouTube channel, and go take a peek behind RotoWire's paywall for free. Go to rotowire.com/try. Just put in your email and you're good. No credit card, no obligation to cancel, none of that. Very simple. rotowire.com/try.